In the rugged hills of Southern California, under the shadow of the San Gabriel Mountains, there exists a place known as Roost Ranch. Located among steep canyons and oak-studded landscapes, the ranch was more than just a hideout. It was a symbol of rebellion during the turbulent times of 19th century California and the lair of one of the state's most infamous outlaws, Tiburcio Vasquez. Born in Monterey, California in 1835, Tiburcio Vasquez grew up in a time of great upheaval. California had recently transitioned from Mexican to American rule, and the cultural clash between Mexican Californios and the influx of American settlers was palpable. Vasquez's early life was marred by the tension between these communities, and he quickly learned that the promises of prosperity in the new California were not extended to everyone, especially those of his heritage. As a young man, Vasquez was charismatic and intelligent, fluent in Spanish and English, and known for his sharp wit and dashing good looks. But his charm masked a simmering resentment. Witnessing the injustices suffered by his fellow Californios, the dispossession of their lands, the erosion of their rights, and the overt racism of the new authorities, Vasquez found himself increasingly at odds with the society around him. A pivotal incident in 1852, where he was falsely accused of participating in a riot, set him on the path of crime. Jailed and treated harshly, Vasquez emerged a changed man, vowing to fight back against the injustices he perceived. By the time he was in his 20s, Vasquez had transformed from a disillusioned youth into a feared bandit. He was known to ride with gangs across the state, robbing stagecoaches, rustling cattle, and plundering stores. Yet, unlike the typical bandit, Vasquez styled himself as a modern-day Robin Hood, claiming to strike against the gringos who had wronged his people. To many, he was a villain, but to some of the local Californios, he was a hero, a defender of their lost way of life. Roost Ranch, Vasquez's notorious hideout, was more than just a strategic choice, it was a symbol of defiance. The ranch was situated in a secluded part of the mountains, surrounded by natural barriers that made it nearly impossible for lawmen to approach undetected. The terrain was rugged and unforgiving, filled with narrow passes and hidden caves that provided excellent vantage points and escape routes. Vasquez had a keen understanding of geography, using the land to his advantage time and time again. The ranch itself was a patchwork of makeshift structures, a few cabins made of rough-hewn timber, a corral for horses, and a hidden storeroom for stashing loot. From this secluded outpost, Vasquez and his gang planned their heists and evaded capture. The ranch became a meeting point for Vasquez's trusted associates, a place where plans were drawn and spoils were divided. It was also a sanctuary for Vasquez's closest allies, men who shared his grievances against the authorities and were willing to risk their lives for the promise of riches and revenge. Despite its austere appearance, Roost Ranch was a hive of activity. Vasquez kept a loose but disciplined command over his men, ensuring that the ranch remained well-provisioned. They raised livestock, grew vegetables in a small garden patch, and even had a skilled blacksmith who could repair their firearms and shoe their horses. Vasquez's charisma and leadership skills kept his men loyal, even during the lean times when bounties on their heads made it dangerous to venture into town. From robbers' roost, Vasquez launched some of his most audacious crimes. He targeted stagecoaches carrying gold from the mines, ranches owned by wealthy landowners, and even towns that were foolish enough to leave their banks lightly guarded. His method was always the same: strike fast, strike hard, and disappear into the mountains before anyone could react. One of Vasquez's most infamous heists occurred in 1873 in the small town of Tres Pinos, located in San Benito County. With a handful of men, Vasquez rode into town in the dead of night. Armed with pistols and rifles, they quickly overpowered the local lawmen and seized control of the town's saloon, where many of the residents had gathered. Vasquez ordered everyone to hand over their valuables, but unlike other bandits, he was noted for his courteousness. He never harmed women and rarely resorted to violence unless provoked. However, the Tres Pinos raid turned deadly when 2 bystanders were shot and killed in the confusion. The crime shocked California and catapulted Vasquez to the top of the state's most wanted list. The governor put a hefty bounty on his head, dead or alive. Vasquez's response was to lay low at Robber's Roost, confident that the rugged terrain and his network of sympathizers would shield him from capture. However, the heightened attention brought unwanted scrutiny, and the law was closing in. In early 1874, Vasquez was betrayed by a close associate who tipped off the authorities to his whereabouts, hoping to collect the bounty. For a man who valued loyalty above all else, the sting of betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. Robber's Roost Ranch was raided, and Vasquez barely escaped, fleeing into the hills as his men scattered in every direction. After his narrow escape from Robber's Roost, Vasquez's days of freedom were numbered. The manhunt intensified, and he found himself constantly on the run. Vasquez moved from safe house to safe house, relying on the hospitality of friends and strangers alike, but the net was closing in. In May 1874, Vasquez was finally cornered at a ranch in the outskirts of Los Angeles, far from his mountain stronghold. The posse that captured him was led by Sheriff Albert Johnson, a relentless lawman who had spent months tracking the elusive bandit. Vasquez surrendered without a fight, his defiant spirit intact, but his body weary from years of evasion. The capture was sensational news, and Vasquez was paraded through the streets of Los Angeles, his reputation as California's most wanted man cemented. During his trial, Vasquez maintained his innocence in the murders at Tres Pinos, though he openly admitted to the robberies. He used the courtroom as a stage, charming the press and onlookers with his articulate defense. Vasquez portrayed himself as a champion of the downtrodden, a man driven to crime not by greed but by the injustices inflicted upon his people. His charisma won him public sympathy, but it was not enough to save him from the gallows. On March 19, 1875, Tiburcio Vásquez was executed in San Jose. His final words were a mix of defiance and resignation, reflecting a life lived on the edge. Vasquez's death marked the end of an era, but his legend only grew in the years that followed. To some, he remained a villain, a cold-blooded criminal who terrorized the state. To others, he was a folk hero, a symbol of resistance against oppression. After Vasquez's capture and execution, Robber's Roost Ranch fell into obscurity. The cabins were left to decay, and the once bustling hideout became a ghost of its former self. Over time, the ranch became a local legend, a place shrouded in mystery and folklore. Some claimed that Vasquez's spirit still roamed the hills, guarding his lost treasures hidden among the rocks. Others spoke of strange noises and flickering lights in the night, remnants of the outlaw's restless soul. In the 20th century, efforts were made to preserve what little remained of Robber's Roost. Local historical societies took an interest in the site, recognizing its importance as a cultural landmark. Though the original structures had long since crumbled, the location was marked with a plaque, commemorating the outlaw and his band of desperados. Today, Robber's Roost Ranch stands as a silent reminder of California's wild past, a place where history, myth, and the spirit of rebellion converge. In the end, Robber's Roost is more than just an old bandit hideout. It is a symbol of the enduring struggle between law and lawlessness, between civilization and the untamed wild. The ranch stands as a monument to those who dared to defy the odds, living and sometimes dying on their own terms. Tiburcio Vasquez, with all his flaws and contradictions, remains a compelling figure, forever etched into the rocky landscape of California's outlaw history. If you found this video interesting, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more content like this.